All right, good morning, second grade. Today for social studies, we are going to be looking at picturing the United States. So to begin our lesson, I want you to think about your house. So what I want you to do is I want you to picture in your minds the inside of what your house looks like. And when you do this, it can help to close your eyes when you picture something in your mind. And so as you are making this mental image in your mind about what your house looks like, what you are doing is you are making a mental map of your house in your head. So next, I want you to think about the neighborhood in which you live. And so one thing that you could do is you could take a walk through your neighborhood and think about all the different places that you see in the area where you live. And if you can't get out and take a walk, that's totally okay. You can also just picture it in your head. So you can picture the street that you live on, or even if you want to go bigger, you can think about maybe like East Fork or White River or wherever you live. You can think of like all the different buildings that you see in that area. And so again, by doing that, you have just made a map of your neighborhood in your mind. So now I want you to think about something that is very large. So one thing that is very large is the United States as a whole. So because we're not in the classroom, we can't look at a full, huge classroom map of the United States. But on the right side, we do have a picture of what the United States looks like as a whole. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to outline the border of the whole United States. So just like we did with that map of Ohio, we are going to do the same thing now for the whole United States. So we're going to take green to represent land. And we're going to go around and we're going to trace. And we see right where Ohio is on the map. And so we're going to go around and we're going to trace the whole outline of the United States of America. And so while we do this, we're also going to notice on our map that we also have some lakes as well that we just went around. So we'll go back through and we will color those in blue. So we have our outline here. So now let's go in with our blue, and we have our five Great Lakes of the United States. So we have Lake Michigan, Lake Superior, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario. And then one that we don't see on here, but we have the Mississippi River that runs from Wisconsin to Illinois, down to Missouri, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. And this is a huge river that gives a lot of water to a lot of the United States. And then it comes down through Louisiana and down to the Gulf of Mexico. Alright, so we just did an outline of the whole United States and also all of the 5 Great Lakes and also the Mississippi River. All right, so when we look at the shape of the U.S., we notice that kind of up north, up by where the Canadian border is, so kind of up by like Montana and North Dakota and Washington State, we see it's a pretty straight line. And then when we look more south, like where Texas and Florida is, we see that we have some states that kind of stick out there. We also notice that by the Pacific Ocean, over by California to Oregon to Washington, we have very big states. We have only 3 states that make up that coast, that west coast, and then over on the east coast, over here, we see that we have a lot more really small states over there. And so we have a lot more states that make up the East Coast than the West Coast. So the United States is made up of 50 states. So if we were to count up each of these boxes, including Alaska and Hawaii down in the corner, we would get 50 states. So these states together make up our big country of the United States of America. Now, most of the states are close together. So in the big part that we outlined, that is 48 states if we were to count up each of those states and their borders. And then we also have 2 more states, which are Alaska and Hawaii. So because we don't want to forget about those, let's go in and just do an outline of these states. And so the reason that they are kind of down here by themselves and they show where they are located compared to like Canada and Mexico and where the other 40 states are is because these 2 states are not directly connected to the United States. So these 2 are far away from the other states. And that's why they are put into these little maps as well. So now let's go and find our state on the map. So we all know that we live in the great state of Arizona. So let's go ahead and let's outline the border of Arizona here. All right, so we see where Arizona is located compared to all the other states. So we see that Arizona borders California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. And then, of course, below it would be Mexico, but that is not a part of the United States. And so, again, Arizona is one of the states that make up the whole part of the United States of America. And so now let's take a look at how each state is a different shape and a different size. So when we look at these states, like we said before, some of the states look really big. Some of them are very small, like when we go to the East Coast, like Massachusetts to Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, are all pretty small states right next to each other. Whereas we see like Texas and Montana and California and Alaska are all very pretty big states land-wise. And so that's what makes all the states very unique, is that each state has its own size, its own unique shape, and of course, like in Arizona, we are known very well for being the Grand Canyon state and having that very unique scenery in our state. And that's what makes the United States so unique, is that each state has its own beauty to it and its own way of just being unique. And when we put it all together, our country is pretty amazing. All right, so to wrap up our lesson today, we're going to be looking at our vocabulary words. So the first one we have is border. And so again, a border shows where places begin and end. And a border can be a line on a map between states or between countries. Next, we have the vocab word country. And so a country is a land and the people who live there. So the United States is considered a country. Next, we have mental map. And so a mental map is a map that you picture in your mind. And lastly, we have the vocab word state. And so remember, a state is a part of a country, and that there are 50 states that make up the United States. All right, and that is where we are going to end today for our social studies lesson.